This is CPE233 lecture 20 part 3, and it looks like there's going to be 2 more parts to this, so let's go on this thing. So now the really important question here is the optimal width of that interrupt pulse. Okay, so what you want to consider for this thing is make sure the pulse is long enough to be caught and make sure it's not too long to be caught twice. And so once again, we can look at the timing diagram on this one. So the notion is, we're not going to look at the timing diagram, is that the interrupt pulse, it needs to be, for just a non-load instruction, it needs to be at least 2 clock cycles long. Because if it turns on in the beginning of the fetch state, it has to be there at the end of the execute state. Okay, so that, which is good, but so you can say, well, it's 2 clock cycles. But if it was 2 clock cycles and you got an interrupt during a load instruction, the interrupt would turn off the end of the interrupt state, and you'd actually miss it. Okay, so the idea here is, worst case, I need to have that interrupt. Worst case is it turns on right at the beginning of the fetch state. It needs to still be on at the end of the write back state for a load instruction. Okay, so that means it has to go through the fetch, through the execute, and all the way through the write back. Okay, so that's essentially what that means is, if it was just a little bit under 2 clock cycles, a little bit under 3 clock cycles long, I could still miss it. And so the ideal width of this pulse, to make sure I catch it, I'm not going to say ideal width, to make sure I catch the width of this pulse, it needs to be 3 clock cycles. Okay, so which is great. Once it's 3 clock cycles, it guarantees I'm going to come back into this interrupt if it's a load instruction. So the question you have to wonder is 3 clock cycles too long for a non-load instruction? It may be too long such that I go back to the fetch cycle and that same 3 clock cycle interrupt generates another interrupt. Okay, so let's look at it. So if it's 3 clock cycles long, it turns on here. It's still existing there. This is the 3rd clock cycle, and then the interrupt is still asserted. It gets me into the interrupt cycle. So there are my 3 clock cycles. So somewhere when it comes back here, if it's 3 clock cycles long, it turns off. So there's actually no possibility that we'll say if that interrupt is 3 clock cycles long, there's actually no possibility that it's going to be executed twice by a non-load instruction. So essentially the 3 clock cycles is, I'll say, kind of ideal, because it guarantees the interrupt will always be caught for any instruction, and it guarantees for even with the non-load instructions that interrupt is going to be gone by the time the end of the next interrupt, next execute cycle appears. So 3 clock cycles is optimal. So relating it back to the one-shot idea, the one-shot, the pulse width of that one shot should be configured to be 3 clock cycles. Now, what you'll see in typical one-shot applications, at least digital ones, you have control over the width of the pulse. It's generally it's programmable, and the device that we'll see has it's parameterized, that allows you to set the width of the pulse. Okay. So once again, we're still worried about whether the pulse is too long to cause multiple interrupts. And so what I'm gonna look at in this next time diagram is exactly how many clock cycles have to happen before I can technically catch the next interrupt. Okay, and the idea here is, you'll see it coming up here, that idea here is, once again, the very first, for this problem is, it's an academic exercise, it's probably not something you want to do, is when the first instruction in the interrupt service routine is going to turn that interrupt back on. It's going to re-enable the interrupts. So that being the case, by the time I get to the next possibility of having that interrupt be caught again, I want to make sure that interrupt's gone. So let's look at the timing diagram in this. I think it's spelled out in the timing diagram a little bit better. So I get an interrupt. Okay, all's good. Interrupt cycle, you've seen all this before. What's interesting here, I got this int taken signal, which I included here, which is something that the hardware is going to generate as part of the interrupt state, by the way. You'll arrive at that when you do experiment 7, but the idea is the first instruction in the interrupt service routine is going to be to re-enable the interrupts. Okay, as you've seen this before in the previous example, but here's the instruction. I'm writing the CSR unit, and this is the interrupt enable. It's not until after this execute cycle of this instruction that the interrupts actually turn on. So if the interrupts are still enabled right here, which they are right here, it's not going to be caught because the interrupts are disabled at the end of the execute cycle of that instruction. So what I really need to do is make sure that interrupt is gone before the end of the execute cycle of the next instruction. So what we have here is the next instruction, and I put it as it's not a load type instruction, so it has 2 clock cycles. I just got to make sure that interrupt is gone before the end of this execute cycle. If that interrupt was still there, it would go right back into another interrupt service routine, which would be nested interrupts, essentially because the interrupts are disabled interrupts are enabled at that point. So all in all, I'm going to count these up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like 7 clock cycles. If it was 7 clock cycles, it could possibly break. But if the width of this pulse was 6 clock cycles, it would not break. That means that interrupt would be gone by the time I was able to re-enable the interrupts, which I did here, and then get to the execute cycle of the very next instruction, and therefore it would actually not interrupt. So the answer to this one is, it looks like 7, but it's actually a little bit less than 7, so we're just going to call it 6. And that's it. I'm going to do one example here, and we'll do that in part 4.